Mr. Speaker. I did hear my honourable colleague's speech on one thing, and it's important that we clear the record, and it's something that the opposition hasn't done throughout this debate, and I've been privy to much of it. And I heard the honourable members say that we heard testimony on the committee that talked about reduction of suicide rates, and that is absolutely not the case. In fact, the testimony we heard in evidence on the committee was that suicide rates had no correlation whatsoever to the long gun registry, that in fact it had more to do from the expert testimony that we heard with the introduction of medication, SSRI. And for the member to stand up in the House now and say that the long gun registry is correlated in any way to the prevention of suicide is just wrong. But that's consistent with all the other messages that have been provided by the opposition. And I'd like the honourable colleague to reiterate the testimony that she heard, where she can directly link the suicide prevention in our country, suicide rates going down because of a long gun registry, because that's not what I heard and that's not what other members of the Public Safety Committee heard.
The honourable member for Gatineau. I will quote two sources. The first is from the Association for the Prevention of Suicide of Quebec. Now, obviously, they expressed themselves in French, but I think that the colleague is listening to the interpretation, and they were crystal clear that it did have an impact indeed, and I'll tell you why. The director of public health in Quebec also said this: making access to guns more difficult, because statistics show that most suicides are committed with a long gun, and when there is no more access to this registry, I find it very odd that since the registry was set up, that these statistics have gone down. I don't think that's a coincidence. And obviously, an association that prevents suicide in Quebec, well, it came and spoke to the committee and said this. So I think the colleagues should look back to the Blues, because it is the National Suicide Prevention Week, and not only is suicide a scourge in Quebec, but across the country.